What's the worst legal thing you can do? Permanently destroying huge swaths of land. There's a development corporation in my hometown that has bought up virtually all of the remaining woods, meadows and wetlands in the area, paved them, and built retail spaces that go vacant just a few months later. Businesses aren't even moving into these office parks, but the group just keeps spreading out and developing. It seems like every month, I drive past another leveled tract of land. How is that even economically viable? You can leak the names, addresses, email addresses, social security numbers, driver's license numbers, and payment card details of nearly half of all Americans, and more than half of all American adults, and then settle for about $5 per person. Hold Equifax accountable, yo. Don't forget 3 of their top level executives sold a significant share of their stock holdings just before the breach was announced to the public. I think it's pretty crappy to claim bodily harm from a very minor car accident just to get $10K and make the other person pay more for their car insurance. I'm looking at you, lady. I hit going 3 miles per hour. Probably not the worst thing, but it's pretty bad. Marrying someone you don't love. Imagine finding the love of your life, getting married and maybe even having kids, and then they tell you they never loved you, and you built your whole life around them for nothing. This happened with a Russian spy in the Cold War days. Married an American woman as cover. When he got caught, she found out her marriage was a complete lie. Hike the prices up on insulin, out of a member's affordable range. Alternatively, just decide to take it off of your formulary list with no clear reason. The people in charge of these decisions should be charged with murder. Hundreds of diabetics have died as a direct result of no longer being able to afford insulin. Have a child. Never bring him out in public. Only take photos of him beside a mocked up meteor crash. Let him find the pics when he's 13. That's what the Kents did to Superman. It's just a coincidence he turned out to have superpowers. Standing idly and filming people who desperately need help, instead of helping. Like those kids that filmed and laughed as a disabled guy drowned and died. In many cases it actually is illegal to withhold aid from someone or to not notify emergency services if you are physically able. Develop a wonderful loving relationship with someone for a majority of your life. Kids, pets, trust, everything included. One day, tell them all you never loved them. It was all a game you were playing for the last 20 years. Divorce your partner and leave with the stash of cash you've been putting away for the last 20 years. Moving to a new country never to see them again. If you don't tell them anything and move, it'll be worse. Make sure you can be found on social media as happy and alive. There was a guy a while back who took a photo up a 13-year-old girl's skirt. The judge had some choice words to say, but the guy got let go because, technically, it wasn't illegal. There was a similar case in my city when I was that age and it was terrifying, but my state made it illegal to do that as a result. Nestle claiming rights to water and then selling it back to the public at exorbitant prices, all while polluting the earth with the production of single-use plastic bottles. Put a fake X on an ad. 90% of the time there's one hidden in one of the corners. The act of cannibalism itself is legal in most nations. It's just getting the meat that is usually illegal. To add to this, I've considered the aspects of cooking human meat a little deeper and come up with this. Human meat is very close to pork, so lightly seasoned and glazed with something sweet like honey, plum sauce, apple sauce or maple syrup. You would have to cook it very well and make sure to properly sear it and cook it relatively quickly, as human meat is around 7% fat. So quite lean for red meat. Since human skin is quite thin, you could easily make crackling with it, so that would be something to watch out for. The legs especially would make for good long cooking techniques, with the thighs being good for a quick roast and the calves being better for braising or stewing. The muscles of the back could make good grilling, with the lumbar multifidus being somewhat akin to filet mignon. The arms, in general, would be good for general purpose meats, along with the abdominals, though the latter would need to be cooked far longer. The shoulders would be particularly fatty cuts, prime for stewing or braising. As for the glutes, being some of the most used muscles in the body, they would be ideal for barbecue or making jerky with. And desecrating the corpse. As a fertility doctor, in most states, it's totally legal for you to inseminate a patient with your own sperm instead of their selected donor. That is so wrong on so many levels. This happened to me in Uruguay, but I've been told a similar tactic works in the US. Suppose I'm evil, and I have money, not a huge amount of money, but a healthy 6-digit number in the bank, and I see someone else. This someone else maybe doesn't make a lot. Maybe he has a lot of kids. Maybe it's a recession and he's having a hard time finding enough work. Who knows? But he's barely making it, paycheck to paycheck. But he has something of value. He owns his family farm outright, and it's worth a small 6-digit number. But he relies on this farm mainly to provide a rent-free place to live. If he had to pay rent for a place to live, he wouldn't be anywhere close to making it. So I'm wealthy and evil. I contact my lawyer and say, hey, I know this guy. He doesn't have any money, but he has this property. Let's sue him. He'll be required to immediately come up with cash in the sum of 10% of the value of the lawsuit in order to defend himself. His property is worth $100,000, so we'll make up some crazy excuse to sue him for $100,000. He won't be able to come up with a $10,000, so we'll win by default, and we'll force the sale of his property. Then you get 20%. So the lawyer sues on contingency. In other words, the wealthy person doesn't have to pay anything to do this. In order to improve the odds, I convince a judge to include non-standard language in the official notification of the lawsuit. If the guy doesn't reply within 10 days, he loses by default. Then we throw the paperwork in the dirt in front of the house and hope no one finds it before it's too late. I was the poor guy. The legal documents sat in the mud in front of our house for a week before anyone saw it. I managed to come up with a $10,000 and file a response the day before the 10-day deadline. The lawsuit took more than 2 years to complete. I won, but it still cost me $25,000 to defend myself. And the evil guy? It was a 70-year grandma type friend that we had trusted and considered to be a part of our family. Start a pharmaceutical company. Develop a drug that people need to live. Raise the price just because you know they'll pay for it if they don't want to die. Start a pharmaceutical company and buy the sole producer of a cheap but rare drug. Then jack the prices up 4,000%. Claim that access to water isn't a human right and then forcing people in third world countries to buy your crappy products at exorbitant prices because there's no alternative. In most states, a police officer can have sex with a person after they are taken into custody. Legal, but pretty messed up considering a person's ability to consent is questionable at that point. Should be a fireable offense and not allowed. Bull's loophole. Leave your own cat somewhere on the road, far away from home, without food. Not vaccinating your kids. Here in Italy it's kind of illegal. Your kids can't even start kindergarten or any other school if they are not vaccinated, and you can also get a ticket for that. Politicians can harm millions of people by actions that are considered legal by those who have the power to condemn them. Rape your wife while on holiday in the Bahamas. Alternative countries are available where raping your wife is not considered rape. Buy a building as a landlord and kick a family business out for selfish and greedy motivation, and then steal that family business's original idea and watch them struggle after the unexpected loss of their business. Thankfully the sucker sucked at running a business and didn't even last a year before closing the doors. I was at a party where this happened. The guy actually had to move out of town because he was soon known by everyone for his actions. To start off, it was a fairly moderate house party. Not much drinking was involved and no drugs whatsoever. It was chill and everyone had a good time. So this other dude showed up and he was that typical slender, pale, creepy nerd type of guy. Everyone was having fun, making friends and chatting, but this dude just stands in the corner and looks at people. I try to be nice and bring him in on the conversation, but instead he starts to awkwardly hit on one of the girls I was with that evening. She was visibly distressed and gave him a harsh answer which he didn't take very well. So he got angry and stormed off. Everyone was happy that this guy left, but as it turns out he called the police and told them that we were dealing drugs and that minors were given access to hard alcohol. Nobody got arrested as his claims were obviously wrong, but it still killed the mood. We only found out that it was actually him because for a few days after, He bragged about it online and someone noticed. I had a friend staying with me for a while cause his mom was a nutcase and an alcoholic. His dad didn't have his crap together, which happens, so he wasn't staying with his dad either. So my family is trying to help this guy, basically still a kid, get some assets together so he can start making his life happen in spite of everything. So my father, being the extremely cool guy he is, buys me a new car, and we give my old car to my friend. For some reason I never understood cause I'm kind of a dumb frick when it comes to finance. It made the most sense to give the title to his dad, so his dad would technically be the owner of the car, but my friend would be the primary driver. Like 2 weeks in his dad does something, I never knew what, and now my friend can't drive the car. The car is just his dad's. My friend has nothing to do with it. He didn't technically steal the car, so I don't know what to call it. But yeah, taking advantage of the generosity of strangers to steal something from your son while he's coming to terms with how his mother has been abusing him his whole life. That was both legal and, at least as far as I'm concerned, very rude. Put your $sign in an offshore account so you can avoid paying billions in taxes. Then complain that the lower classes are mooching off your money. Throw a Halloween party with a snack table full of completely normal snacks except for one large bowl with a sign that says grab a handful, and it is filled to the top with an even mix of M&Ms and Skittles. Honestly, I wouldn't mind. My two favorite kind of sweets. I eat them one at a time anyway, like a freaking psychopath I've been told. Protesting and insulting somebody who sacrificed their life in the military at their funeral, regardless of your stance on the military, that's pretty freaking bad. Looking at you Westboro Baptist Church. Not vaccinating your children pets. Vaccinating is only mandatory in 15 countries in Europe, and not against all diseases. Tell a man that some kids are his. He signs the birth certificate, and then it comes out not even 6 months later that the kids are not his, but since he signed the certificate he still has to pay child support for 18 years even if the real father is known. Here is one from Guangzhou. A married couple lives apart because of work. The wife has a stable job in their small hometown with her parents so they could help with taking care of the baby. The man works in a Guangzhou. Supposedly they should move together when the kid is a bit older and when the mom finds a job in the Guangzhou. But during that 1 year apart, the man cheated and now wants a divorce. But he also wanted full custody of his son because his parents likes their grandson. The law forbids custody to be given to the father if the child is still breastfeeding until 2 years old. The son is only 1 year old now. So they plotted and did illegal but the worst thing possible. The man asked the wife to quit her job and move to Guangzhou. He earns enough to support her fully. So for 1 year she was an unemployed housewife with zero income. The house they live in was bought by the guy's parents so it 100% belonged to the guy's parents. After the son was age 2, he filed for divorce. During the custody battle, he was a man with a good job, a place to live, and has a good social circle. She was a woman without a job, no place to live, and no other family to support her. She lost custody of her child. It was quite devastating for her. The only thing she can hope for is to return back home, get a job and try to appeal. But it'll be hard because the resources are obviously much better in a large city like Guangzhou. Oh, and the icing on the cake is because he has full custody, by law she's required to pay an amount for the child until he is 18. So she lost her son and she has to pay every month. That's the worst thing I have ever heard and it's completely legal. Take trillions of dollars out of the public coffers through various schemes and means and privatize the country for your own benefit. Then sell the people on the idea that if they just work hard they too will be a billionaire. Oh, and launder your public image through a foundation or something. The poor love to see wealthy people who care, although this is also tax deductible and gives you power over the organizations you now donate to. Slowly undermine education, healthcare, transit, and civil engagement via these methods until you constitute a new aristocracy. Hide money in tax havens through a shell company in the Caymans, owned by 3 companies in the city, Singapore, and 1 in Delaware, and supports politicians who advocate for job creators over job workers. 1. Buy a $1 million yacht. Donate that yacht to a 501c 3 that you control, but not directly, maybe a spouse or shell corp. 2 write off the cost of that donation in taxes, maybe 75%. 3 buy the yacht from that non-profit through a third subsidiary, this is important, and write that off taxes too, maybe 75% again. 4 basically free yacht. So, funny story, I had a next door neighbor that used to power wash his house at 1 PM every Sunday. I asked him politely if he could do it an hour or two earlier or at least on a different day, since I worked third shift at the time and didn't get off work until 11 AM on Sundays and had to be in at 11 that night. He refused ever so kindly. It's my property and I'll do whatever the frick I want to whenever the frick I want to. I told him to remember that. I knew that he usually worked on Saturdays and noise curfew where I lived was extended to 1130 PM on Fridays, so I just started mowing the side of my lawn next to his house every Friday night starting at 1115. Whether it needed it or not, I'd sometimes break out the trimmer and go around the hedges and AC condenser too. And every time he'd come out and complain, I'd hand him a copy of the noise ordinance and repeat his response back to him. He even called the cops on me one time and I handed them a copy of the ordinance and told them why I was doing it, and they basically told him not to call back. Oh yeah, and I'd crank up some AC/DC on my garage stereo and blast that crap. He eventually cut that crap out after about 2 months of tasting his own medicine. Mow your lawn at 3 AM. So, funny story, I had a next door neighbor that used to power wash his house at 1 PM every Sunday. I asked him politely if he could do it an hour or two earlier or at least on a different day, since I worked third shift at the time and didn't get off work until 11 AM on Sundays and had to be in at 11 that night. He refused ever so kindly. It's my property and I'll do whatever the frick I want to whenever the frick I want to. I told him to remember that. I knew that he usually worked on Saturdays and noise curfew where I lived was extended to 1130 PM on Fridays, so I just started mowing the side of my lawn next to his house every Friday night starting at 1115. Whether it needed it or not, I'd sometimes break out the trimmer and go around the hedges and AC condenser too. And every time he'd come out and complain, I'd hand him a copy of the noise ordinance and repeat his response back to him. He even called the cops on me one time and I handed them a copy of the ordinance and told them why I was doing it, and they basically told him not to call back. Oh yeah, and I'd crank up some AC/DC on my garage stereo and blast that crap. He eventually cut that crap out after about 2 months of tasting his own medicine. Sue your poorer ex-spouse for child custody so repeatedly that you drain their finances and can't fight it anymore. This could describe patent stealing too. Small guy invents something, big guy steals invention, sues inventor into being broke so small guy can't fight Goliath anymore. A parent keeping their kid from the other parent when there's no good reason to and leveraging the courts to do it. Yeps, my stepson is now 18 and living with us for the last 3 months. His mother screwed him up so badly, she would scream at anyone who would even partly listen that my husband was abusive while offering zero proof. We are trying to slowly build a future for him. Luckily it's bitten her hard. He wants nothing to do with her at all. Meanwhile we are pushing him hard to get his own place, get and enrolling in college classes. It will take a long time, but at least it's getting better and he can see what a screw up his mom really is. Groom your stepdaughter for over a decade, then when she's 18, divorce her mom and hook up with your stepdaughter. You can legally murder your wife or your daughter under the Article 247 of the Revised Penal Code of the Philippines. Article 247. Death or physical injury is inflicted under exceptional circumstances. Any legally married person who, having surprised his spouse in the act of committing sexual intercourse with another person, shall kill any of them or both of them in the act or immediately thereafter, or shall inflict upon them any serious physical injury, shall suffer the penalty of distero. If he shall inflict upon them physical injuries of any other kind, he shall be exempt from punishment. These rules shall be applicable, under the same circumstances, to parents with respect to their daughters under 18 years of age, and their seducer, while the daughters are living with their parents. Any person who shall promote or facilitate the prostitution of his wife or daughter, or shall otherwise have consented to the infidelity of the other spouse shall not be entitled to the benefits of this article. Welcome to the Philippines. In New Zealand, kill your neighbor's pet. The way the law works is that it's completely legal to kill any animal for any or no reason, so long as doing so doesn't put anyone else in danger or cause suffering. A few months ago, someone in my neighborhood had their dog killed with a single blow to the head, and when they caught the guy, he only received a citation for trespassing into the backyard. It turns out, this law is the case in many places around the world. Marry a child. It's 100% legal to marry children in a lot of states in the US. Most of the time it's kept quiet so no one knows about it. The kid can't do anything about it. What could they do? It would be very hard to get out of that situation. Their parents could threaten or punish them. Once you marry the child, then you can move out and do whatever you want. They can't go to an abuse center because the place would call their parents. Once they are 18 and can divorce you, they won't have anywhere to go. They won't have any money. It's still legal because most people don't know about it or just don't realize how hard it is to get out of that situation. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.